Check 1 2 3. Am I audible, people? Can you just confirm? Let's wait for a couple of more minutes for people to arrive. Am I audible, people? Can you just confirm? Am I audible or not? Hello, check 1 2 3. Check 1 2 3. Am I audible? Good evening, Tarun. Waiting for people to arrive. Am I audible, Tarun? Can you just confirm? Okay, fantastic. So without wasting much time, let's start the class. Yeah. So mind mapping techniques for effective reading and reading comprehension. So that's what we are going to discuss today. Yeah. So before I begin with the discussion, let me tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Ravi Manoram. I'm an MBA from FMS Delhi. Yeah, and I've done my engineering from Delhi Technological University. Pooja, thank you. Siddharth, good evening, my dear. Right. But I decided to follow my passion for literature, so I'm a writer today. I've written 2 books, and I have also been training students in the VARC areas for almost all the exams for more than 6 years, and I've made many 99 percentiles in the past who have graduated from and are studying in elite business schools such as Ahmedabad, Bangalore, Calcutta, FMS, XLRI. I also teach reasoning and general knowledge, and I also train students for GDPI and personality development and all as well, right? And dedication, perseverance, empathy, and intellect, these are the values that I'm proud of, and these are the values for which I'm loved and respected. So you can follow me here on Unacademy page, and you can join my Telegram group as well. And should you think about joining Unacademy, you'll get a 10% discount if you use my code RAVIFMS. So people, today Unacademy has lowered the subscription fee, so it's 10% lower. That's only valid for today. So should you think about joining Unacademy, this can be a fantastic opportunity for you. Yeah. Okay. And so this 10% discount that is there, it applies here as well for the plus courses, and if you use my code, you get further 10% discount. So 10%, and then overall जो fees बचेगी उस पे 10% आपको और भी discount मिल जाएगा. And for Iconic subscription too, if you go for the Iconic subscription, you'll get 10% discount and additional 10% discount if you use my code. So it's a fantastic opportunity to get things at a very cheap cost. Okay, people, let's start with the session. Yeah. Okay, chalo, fantastic. So reading comprehension has been a tough area. Yeah, Siddharth, Pooja, Tarun, it has been a troublesome area. What do you think? Reading comprehension, yes, right. So one of the reasons why people tend to suffer in reading comprehension. Okay, you guys tell me, why do students suffer when it comes to reading comprehension? क्या problem होता है? Why do they suffer? Siddharth, what do you think they suffer? Pooja, what do you think is the troublesome part of reading comprehension? Why do they suffer? Any idea? Any idea why do they suffer? Why do students struggle with reading comprehension? Retaining, yes, that's one problem. Yeah, that's one problem. और क्या? Improving, Tarun? Chalo. Now, some of the problem is, let me try and state it this way. Let me try and show it to you. So this is a passage that we have. This is a passage that we have, right? What students do is they start from the first line. Okay? They start reading the passage. They go on reading, they go on reading, they go on reading till they reach the last line. Last line पे वो आ जाते हैं. ठीक है? And then they jump down to the questions. ठीक है? They jump down to the questions. ठीक है? Now when they come down to the questions, right, they don't remember exactly what the passage has said. So whatever they remember, based on that they go about answering the questions, right? Now here the students have two options. Either they go back to the passage again and again in order to find the answers, right? And then kind of cross check for each of the options, right? And if they do that for all the 5 questions or 4 questions or 6 questions, it depends on how many questions are there, right? They might actually end up wasting about 20 to 30 minutes. That is not advisable, right? And now if they read the passage, when they come down to the questions, and then if they simply answer the questions based on what they remember, then their accuracy suffers. Lack of concentration, Rishi. Okay, fair enough. Okay, this technique that I'm telling you, it will help you in your in improving your concentration as well, है ना? तो ये भी चीज़ जो है इसमें भी आपको ये improve करेगा, ठीक है ना? Definitely improve करेगा, no doubt about that, ठीक है? Okay, so that's the thing, है ना? Right. So now you can see, if you go about reading the passage again and again, you would end up wasting about 20 minutes, 30 minutes on a passage. And if you simply answer the questions based on what you remember, you will answer the passage within 8 to 10 minutes, but then your accuracy will suffer, and sometimes your accuracy is less than 50% if you do not confirm the answers from the passage. Do you concur or not? Do you agree to this or not? आप agree करते हो या नहीं करते हो इस चीज़ से? What do you think, people? Do you agree to this or not? Yeah? होता है ना इस तरह से? ठीक है? So this is, these are the two problems. So what should be the solutions? Should we read the question first? Question हमें पहले पढ़ना चाहिए या नहीं पढ़ना चाहिए? Questions first. Should we read the questions first? What do you think, people? Should we or should we not? Agree, Pooja? Yeah. So do you think we should read the questions first or not? Siddharth, what do you think? Pranav? We should read the questions first, or are you agreeing to that? अच्छा, CAT के RCs में क्या करना चाहिए? Questions पहले पढ़ना चाहिए या नहीं पढ़ना चाहिए? What do you think? Should we read the questions first or not? No. Pranav says no. What about others? Should we read the questions first? Should we or should we not? No, Pooja. देखो, as far as CAT passages are concerned, we should not, read the questions first. ठीक है ना? हमें पहले questions नहीं पढ़ना चाहिए. दीपिका absolutely right, है ना? पहले हमें questions नहीं पढ़ने चाहिए. ठीक है? There is a reason behind that. ठीक है ना? One line summary of all paragraphs. I'm coming to that. ठीक है ना? We should not read the questions first. है ना? देखो, इसके पीछे मैं थोड़ा सा लॉजिकली चीज़ें आंसर करता हूँ. ठीक है ना? क्योंकि see, the questions that are based on the CAT exam, they're based on what you have understood from the entire passage, not on individual elements. जैसे आपको ग्रेजुएशन में या BBA के एंट्रेंस एग्जाम में जिस टाइप के पैसेजेस आते हैं, ठीक है ना? Here the questions is based on what you have understood from the entire passage. Even if they ask you about the interpretation of a particular line, that interpretation depends on what is the entire passage saying. For example, this line is talking about the differences between girls and boys, gender differences के बारे में बात कर रहा है. But और एक ऑप्शन सिर्फ जेंडर डिफरेंस के बारे में ही बात कर रहा है. बट देन दैट जेंडर डिफरेंस इज इन द कॉन्टेक्स्ट ऑफ अंडरस्टैंडिंग द नीड्स ऑफ adolescents and teenagers, and then it is better to deal with them and how they should be treated and how you can help them grow better in life, right? ठीक है ना. So it's all about understanding adolescents and teenagers when you talk about understanding the gender differences, है ना. तो ये चीज़ है, ठीक है. तो so the bigger picture of that interpretation is with respect to gender differences, and all of us know that critical reasoning, critical reasoning plays a very important role in today's CAT paper. Critical reasoning plays a very important role in today's CAT paper. Or critical reasoning क्या है? You have to answer the questions based on what information is given in the passage with respect to what information is given in the options, है ना. So options में कभी कभी new information होता है, and you can only analyze the information if you have understood from the passage, है ना. So the point is reading the questions first is a sin, है ना. If you read the passage alone, you will not be able to remember it. So that is again a tough job. So how do we go about handling it? And yet there are people who read the passage and they can tell you, more or less what the passage actually contains. And when you cross check it, you will see कि अरे यार ये बंदे ने तो पूरे पैसेज के बारे में काफ़ी अच्छा बता दिया कि अच्छा यहाँ पर ये इन्फॉर्मेशन है, यहाँ ये इन्फॉर्मेशन, देखो ये बात हुई है, ये बात हुई, ये बात हुई, ये बात हुई, एंड सो फोर्थ, राइट. दे आर एबल टू टेल यू एग्जैक्टली व्हाट द पैसेज इज ऑल अबाउट, ठीक है ना, राइट. तो ये भी चीज़ है. सो हाउ डू दे डू दैट? व्हाट दे डू एसेंशियली इज दे डू माइंड मैपिंग. इनफैक्ट इफ़ यू आस्क मी कि अगर ये पैसेज ना अगर मैं तुम्हें दे दूँ और बोलूँ कि तुम घर जाओ, 2 दिन 3 दिन के बाद वापस आओ एंड देन रिसाइट द पैसेज वर्बटिम, यू माइट स्टिल नॉट बी एबल टू डू इट, है ना. तुम फिर भी इसे नहीं कर पाओगे, ठीक है, बिकॉज यू विल नॉट बी एबल टू रिमेंबर इट, राइट, बिकॉज इट्स वेरी डिफिकल्ट टू मेमोराइज अ पैसेज, ठीक है. सो व्हाट पीपल डू इज दे डू माइंड मैपिंग. व्हाट इज माइंड मैपिंग? You are just mapping the information, or you are just trying to create the map of information. Map of information is just like any other map. Take it, for example, in Delhi, let's say, I have to go from Pitampura, let's say, to Saket, right? And if I'm a newbie in Delhi, I don't know anything about Delhi, right? I might be lost. I would just keep, driving here and there, and I might reach Saket in maybe 4 or 5 hours. But if I have a map, I know exactly what route to take and how to reach. So basically, the map tells me the location of different places in Delhi, by virtue of which, if I follow that, I can reach Saket very easily. तो ये map of information ना, ये exactly हमें यही चीज़ के लिए help करता है. They tell us what information is where and how we can go about reaching that particular place, है ना. तो ये चीज़ है. But before I teach you map of information, right, I must kind of tell you, or show you how actually any essay or article is written. For example, any author, any writer goes about writing an essay or an article. Forget about novels and all right now, but at least let's focus on essay or article. Let's talk about how does any writer go about writing this, है ना. So this will give us a lot of idea about this. Kumari Ishita, good evening, sir. Okay, Ishita, hi, hello, nice. Okay, Kumari Ishita, okay. So no, I thought you were some other Ishita. ये चीज़ है. Okay, anyway, तो अरे लेट इज क्यों आ गया यार, ये लेट अस होना चाहिए था. लेट अस ट्राई एंड अंडरस्टैंड हाउ एनी एसे और आर्टिकल इज एक्चुअली रिटन, ठीक है ना. बिकॉज इफ वी गेट इट इनसाइड द माइंड ऑफ एन ऑथर, वी विल बी एबल टू बेटर अंडरस्टैंड थिंग्स, है ना. तो ये चीज़ है. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, लेट्स से इफ आई गिव यू अ टॉपिक, हाउ टू प्रिपेयर फॉर कॉम्पिटिटिव एग्जाम्स, है ना. हाउ टू प्रिपेयर फॉर कॉम्पिटिटिव एग्जाम्स. लेट्स टॉक अबाउट दिस पर्टिकुलर टॉपिक, है ना. ये चीज़ है. Now let's say if this topic is given to you and you were to write an essay on this particular topic, right? How would you go about writing an essay? तुम कैसे लिखोगे एक essay इस पर? How would you go about writing an essay on this? कैसे लिखोगे एक essay इस पर? How would you go about writing an essay? कैसे लिखोगे? Anyone? How would you go about writing an essay on this topic? कैसे लिखोगे? How would you? What will be the first thing that you will do? क्या करोगे सबसे पहले? Anyone? Short and to the point. But Ishita, what do you mean short to the point? I mean, what is the first thing that you will do? Let's say if you are to. Here I have not mentioned, how many words that you have to write. So why will you write it short and to the point? You might want to elaborate it so that the reader is able to understand it even better. Introduction about competitive exams and its value. What is the first thing? Siddharth, focus on the question. Pooja, focus on the first question. What will be the first thing? Ishita, again, what will be the first thing that you will do? Arey Baba, wouldn't you prepare a structure of the essay? Okay, these are the points that I would like to talk about. Then only you'll go about talking about the intro and all, no? Yeah? That's exactly what you will do, no? Nahin? Hai na? Isn't it? So, let's say, I decide that I'm going to use 5 points to write this particular essay. Okay? And what are these 5 points? Importance of competitive exams, eligibility, time, preparation, strategy, mocks and revision. Hai na? Based on this, I'm going to write an essay. Why it is important to, kind of list down the main points? It is important because you don't forget the main points, you don't end up mixing up the order, you don't end up repeating them. Hai na? Right? So it's very important to kind of list down the structure that you wish to use in order to write an essay. है ना? तो ये चीज़ है, ठीक है. Now, when I have, let's say, importance of competitive exams, I can talk about the history of competitive exams, how competitive exams started to become very important. For example, in the 70s and all, people used to just submit the mark sheets and they used to get admissions in engineering and medical colleges. But now, you can see how fierce the competitive exams have become, right? So when I'm doing this, I'm kind of elaborating, and that is giving additional information. I might give examples to each of the points as well, right? I might give examples to each of the points as well, right? And I might explain certain points. For example, why does this exam has this eligibility? Why does that exam has that kind of an eligibility, right? So now if I do this for each of the points, I can take this essay to any length that I want, even 5,000 words, 10,000 words, any length that I want, right? Or I can just restrict it to few words, or I can just restrict it to only a few words, है ना? तो वो भी हम इसे कर सकते हैं, है ना? तो ये चीज़ है, right? तो ये है, ठीक है, right? So basically you can see that this particular essay has these main points: importance of competitive exams, eligibility, time, preparation strategy, mocks and revisions, which is further elaborated, explained and given examples, है ना? Right? So these on the left, you can see these are the main points. Now if you put together these main points in the fewest number of words as possible, what you get is a summary, okay? What you get is a summary. So basically, when you are summarizing either a paragraph or a passage, what you are essentially doing is you're listing down the main points, right? And look at the beauty of the main points, okay? These main points tell me exactly what information is where. In the first paragraph, it talks about competitive exams, importance. The second paragraph talks about eligibility, time, preparation strategy, and then we have mocks and revision as well. So I know exactly what information is where based on this particular passage. Okay. Now, if there is a question on preparation strategy, I don't need to read from the first passage. I can just begin reading from here and then, read till the bottom, and I will be able to, find my answers very easily, right? So I don't need to read the entire passage. I can straight away jump to this main point, read the substantiated area and find my answer very easily. Okay? Right? This will help me save 2/3 of the time. ठीक है ना? 2/3 of the time I will be able to save. ठीक है? देखो, रीडिंग कॉम्प्रीहेंशन में ना 2 चीज़ें करना बहुत ज़रूरी होती है. एक क्या होता है? कन्फर्मेशन. दूसरा क्या होता है? एलिमिनेशन. कन्फर्मेशन करने के लिए, एलिमिनेशन करने के लिए, दोनों चीज़ों के लिए आपको पैसेज में वापस जाना पड़ेगा. ठीक है? So the beauty of reading comprehension is the question is there in front of you and the answer is there in front of you. All you have to do is match them. If you fail to match them, that is when you will suffer. That is when you will suffer. ठीक है ना. And if you find the main points, it does become really very easy to confirm the main points, confirm the answers from the passage. ठीक है ना. So that is the beauty of mind mapping. ठीक है ना. That is, you will go about finding the main points of each of the paragraphs or passages. ठीक है ना. ये क्लियर है पॉइंट पीपल? इज दिस पॉइंट क्लियर? ठीक है. अब ये तो मैंने ज्ञान तो दे दिया, यू नो, I've told you that, you know, this is how you go about finding the main points from the passage. ठीक है. सो ये तो अब क्लियर हो गया. ठीक है. राइट. नाउ the question is, sir, how do we go about doing it? क्योंकि when it comes to doing it, when it comes to finding the main points, you know, people tend to suffer a lot. लोग जो है काफी ज्यादा सफर करते हैं, है ना. राइट. So now what I'm going to do is, now I'm going to demonstrate how we can go about finding the main points in a passage. ठीक है ना. How can we go about finding the main points in a passage, or how can we go about doing mind mapping? जब तक आपको सामने में demonstrate करके नहीं दिखाऊंगा ना, तब तक आपको समझ में नहीं आएगा. और when it comes to demonstration, I'm actually going to do it through a philosophy article as well, है ना. Right, I'm going to do it through a philosophy article, and I'm pretty confident that you guys might not be able to see the paragraph, especially the one which is on the left. So let me try and do something, है ना. उसका थोड़ा सा मैं font change कम कर देता हूँ मैं. It's 18 font, so I'll make it into 16. Yeah. Okay, so can you take a screenshot of this one? Can you take a screenshot? थोड़ा सा खुद से पढ़ो, and then I will help you find the main points. ठीक है ना. So take the screenshot of this page. Take the screenshot of the page. ठीक है. And through the discussion of this passage, people, I'm also going to teach you philosophy. Philosophy होता क्या है? I'm pretty confident that all of you, you know, are quite afraid of philosophy as well. ठीक है ना? No matter from where should I, you know, kind of find this. ठीक है. So let me try and see. ठीक है ना? जी बिल्कुल. Okay. ठीक है. एक इस पेज का ये ले लो स्क्रीनशॉट, और एक इस पेज का स्क्रीनशॉट ले लो. आई थिंक इसमें तो कटना नहीं चाहिए. प्रीटी कॉन्फिडेंट. मे बी आई कैन जस्ट लिफ्ट दिस थिंग अ लिटिल अप, है ना. सो व्हेन यू आर क्रिएटिंग पीपीटीज, नो, इट इज़ रियली वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट टू कीप थिंग्स फ्लेक्सिबल. पता नहीं कब क्या चेंज करना पड़ जाए. सो बस ये 2 पेज का जो है आप इसका स्क्रीनशॉट ले लें, थोड़ा सा खुद से पढ़े, है ना. And then I'll explain this passage, and then after this, you know, I'm going to show you the main points like this. What is the main point of this paragraph, this paragraph, this paragraph, और इस तरह से मैं तुम्हें पूरे passage का जो है summary दिखाऊंगा. ठीक है ना. चलो इसका एक screenshot ले लो. ठीक है. And I'm going to give you 1 or 2 minutes to think before I go about explaining this philosophy passage. Taken the screenshot, both the slides, people. दोनों slides का screenshot ले लिया आपने. ठीक है. इस क्लास के बाद आपको फिलॉसफी के पैसेजेस से डर नहीं लगेगा. यू विल फॉल इन लव विथ व्हाट फिलॉसफी एग्जैक्टली इज. ठीक है ना. यू विल फॉल इन लव विथ व्हाट फिलॉसफी एग्जैक्टली इज. ठीक है. ठीक है. चलो करो जरा. फिलॉसफी देखकर ही लोग भागना शुरू कर देते हैं. डन. ओके, फैंटास्टिक पीपल, है ना. Okay, chalo. If you have read the passage, let me know. My room was cool until the passage showed up, Siddharth. ओके चलो, बोरिंग पैसेज नोमैड. फिलोसफी से डर ज़रूर लगेगा तुम्हें, बट प्लीज़ रिमेंबर दैट फिलोसफी के पैसेजेस 100% आते हैं पैसेज मतलब एग्जाम्स में, एंड यूल एंड अप सफरिंग इफ़ यू आर मतलब नॉट कॉन्फिडेंट व्हेन इट कम्स टू पैसेजेस ऑन बेस्ड ऑन फिलोसफी. ठीक है ना, तो ये भी चीज़ है. Okay people, first I'm going to read the entire passage for you. Okay, then paragraph by paragraph I'm going to break the passage and I'm going to explain the entire passage, and trust me, you'll fall in love with it. ठीक है, तो ये चीज़ है. Okay, so let's see. So the purely formal description of philosophy as being that human activity which deals in a practical and or theoretical fashion with the ultimate problems of which man is aware, allows us to assert that it is its mission to overcome the possible and real inertia, physical and mostly mental, of man, who, ensconced more or less comfortable in his culture, doesn't try to look beyond his own myth. Assuredly, each culture offers to philosophy the language that the latter needs to formulate its insights. But it is no less certain that each philosophy tries to question the very foundations on which each culture is based. It is philosophy that investigates the ultimate content of the more or less explicit cosmovision of each culture. ठीक है. Aeon is also good, yes, especially, it talks about IP metaphors and so many other things, and it really becomes very, interesting passage, on science, philosophy and everything. Yes, of course, Okay, so you can see, people, the language of this passage. If you look at CAT paper, not 2019-2020, of late, passages have been as tough as this one, तो ये चीज़ है. ठीक है. So it says, with respect to other disciplines consisting in looking rather than ahead, where were we? Assuredly, each culture offers to philosophy the language that the latter needs to formulate its insights, but it is no less certain that each philosophy tries to question the very foundations on which each culture is based. It is philosophy that investigates the ultimate content of the more or less explicit cosmovision of each culture, right? We have already indicated that a specific difference of philosophy, with respect to other disciplines, consists in looking back rather than ahead, in questioning what holds a culture together instead of hurrying up to scale a cultural edifice and construction. In that sense, philosophy is authentic skepticism. Revolutionary, protesting and transforming. In other words, each philosophy emerges from the womb of a culture and simultaneously, by questioning what holds that culture together, can transform it. In fact, every deep cultural change has emerged from philosophical activity. It has repeatedly been said that the philosophers, although with chronological time lags, are those who influence the most the destinies of history. This radical character of philosophy means that it takes its nourishment from a subsoil where also other cultures take their roots. By that, I mean that the stimulus of philosophical thinking comes from its underground contact with other roots. Or if we were to radically change metaphor, will be cultural, what carries far away its seeds and lets them fall into the philosopher's cogitation, without forgetting the irony that humor hidden in that cogitation. A philosophy without humor loses the humus which keeps it vigorous and stops it from wilting into fanatism. By trying to be aware of its myth, philosophy opens itself up to interculturality in order to accomplish its task of transmythization, thus transforming the original culture's vision of reality. ठीक है? This transformation takes place, although at velocities that can be very different within both cultures in question. The authentic meeting between cultures does not necessarily take place midway, but certainly outside the respective field of either. And otherwise, there would not be meeting but phagotesis or rejection. I insist on this point because the skirmishes, generally economic and political, even military, of certain cultures in foreign fields are not examples of interculturality but of domination. Each philosophy is a human effort to move out of its own myth and attempt to move out of the horizon of one's own world, as represented in miniatures of the late Renaissance, which show man piercing the heavens and glimpsing into an infinite universe, which was then starting to dawn before his very eyes. Every philosophy, by approaching the mythos with logos, exercises a demythologizing function, although it otherwise necessarily remythologizes, as I have said. One cannot separate the logos or the myth from the logos. One cannot separate the logos from myth or the myth from logos. Let us summarize a very complex situation. One receives, this incitement to philosophize as much from the avatars of one's own culture as from the stimuli that comes from foreign cultures. है ना? तो ये चीज़ है. Now let's try and understand each of the paragraphs, people, and then what we will do is we will go about finding the main points as well. दोनों चीज़ें अभी हम लोग करेंगे, है ना? तो ये चीज़ है. Okay. So before I go about doing that, I would kind of request everybody, ठीक है ना? I would request everybody to subscribe to me on Unacademy so that you get all the notifications of the future classes and all that I get there. So you can do that, and if you would like to get other resources on verbal ability and all as well, you can join my group as well, and there is also you can get the notifications and everything. So do that in a moment before we start the discussion in this class, है ना? तो ये चीज़ है, ठीक है? Okay. So here it says the purely formal description of philosophy as being that human activity which deals in a practical and a theoretical fashion with the ultimate problems of which man is aware. है ना? Ultimate problems of which man is aware. Let's focus on that. हमारे लिए, for we humans, ultimate problem है क्या? Have you ever thought about that? Ultimate problem है क्या? है ना? सोचो ज़रा कि ultimate problem है क्या? ठीक है? For we humans, right, ultimate problem is not the bread and butter that we can get, the roti and the sabzi we can get, whether there is roof over our head or not, whether we have clothes to wear or not, whether we have an iPhone or not, right? Ultimate problem हम लोगों के लिए क्या है? It's about the existential questions. What am I supposed to do? Where am I going? है ना? So these are the kind of questions that tend to bother us a lot. है ना? तो ये चीज़ है, ठीक है? And as such, understanding these ultimate questions, then becomes very, very important, right? Very, very important. ठीक है ना? Right? तो ये चीज़ है. So, anyway, so to continue, ठीक है? When we talk about ultimate problems, it is essentially what we are talking about is, our vision and mission of life and everything. हमें पता है कि ये प्रॉब्लम्स हैं, हमारी एग्जिस्टेंशियल क्वेश्चंस हैं, बिकॉज वी टेंड टू सफ़र फ्रॉम दीज एग्जिस्टेंशियल क्वेश्चंस, राइट? सो in order to overcome the existential questions, we would have to make certain effort, but we don't really make any effort towards that, ठीक है? और इस चीज़ को अंडरस्टैंड करने के लिए हमें कौन हेल्प करेगा? फिलॉसफी, है ना? Because it helps us deal in a practical and theoretical approach with the ultimate problems of which man is aware, allows us to assert that it is its mission to overcome the possible and real inertia, physical and mostly mental, of man. So when it comes to finding the answers to our existential question, है ना, हम लोग कभी कोशिश ही नहीं करते हैं. एक तरह से मान लो कोई इनर्शिया है. व्हाट इज दैट इनर्शिया? है ना, फिजिक्स में न्यूटन ने इनर्शिया को कैसे डिफाइन किया था? इनर्शिया इज, इफ अ बॉडी इज इन अ स्टेट ऑफ रेस्ट, it will continue to be in the state of rest, and if it is in the state of constant motion, it will continue to be in a state of constant motion until and unless an external force is applied. Then only either the body will start moving or it will come to a stop if it is in a constant state of motion. है ना? तो philosophy जो है ये हमें वो force देता है जिसके through we humans go about trying to find the questions that are related to our existence. सोचो philosophy कितना ज़्यादा important है, and yet it is the most ignored one. We tend to focus on everything but we tend to be very very ignorant towards this, है ना. और देखो आगे क्या लाइन कह रहा, who ensconced more or less comfortably in his culture doesn't try to look beyond his own myth. है ना, ये myth का मतलब क्या है यहाँ पे? Let's try and understand. Ensconce का मतलब क्या है? When somebody makes, है ना, himself और herself, है ना, अरे क्या लिख दिया मैंने, herself comfortable in a place. ठीक है ना, that is essentially what is meant by ensconce. forcefully, जैसे मान लो कोई गवर्नमेंट लैंड है, कोई आके उस पर कब्जा कर गया, अपने आप को कंफर्टेबल बना लिया. ensconce है, तुम्हारे घर में कोई गेस्ट आया, जाने का नाम ही नहीं ले रहा है, वो वहाँ पर आके बैठ चुका है. that is again another example of ensconced people, है ना. so ये भी होता है इसमें, ठीक है. so that is how people they tend to become ensconced in a particular place, है ना, right. तो ये भी चीज़ है, ठीक है. so basically what it means is, अब देखो पहले ये मिथ, इस वर्ड को समझते हैं, इस वर्ड मिथ को समझते हैं बिफोर वी गो फर्दर. मिथ का मतलब यहाँ पर क्या है? मिथ का मतलब यहाँ पर क्या है? इट इज़ आर बिलीफ. ये देखो वो हाइपोथेटिकल चीज़ों के बारे में नहीं बात हो रही है. मिथ इज आर सर्टेन लेवल, सर्टेन बिलीव्स दैट वी हैव विच वी आर नॉट विलिंग टू क्वेश्चन. वी हैव ऑलरेडी एक्सेप्टेड. For example, we have already accepted we need to make a career, we need to marry, we need to have kids, we need to pay EMIs and one day die. But why aren't we questioning these kind of things, right? Why aren't we questioning? Why don't we think, okay, we may have a bigger purpose than merely surviving, even if it means surviving, with an iPhone or, in a big car or something like that. ठीक है? But can there be a life's purpose bigger than this? We don't even question, है ना. जो हमने हमारे कल्चर ने डिक्टेट कर दिया कि भाई यही तुम्हारा मिथ है, इसी चीज़ को बिलीव करो, एंड वी हैव डिसाइडेड टू फोर्स आवरसेल्व्स टू बी कंफर्टेबल इन दैट पर्टिकुलर सेट ऑफ बिलीफ, है ना. एंड हु हेल्प्स अस कम आउट ऑफ इट? इट इज़ फिलॉसफी, ठीक है, राइट. So philosophy basically by Thar yes, by Thar, है ना. So philosophy basically helps us to understand who we are, our purpose, our existence, है ना, and who helps us question the things around us, who helps us to come out from the artificial sense of comfort that we have given around us and to actually go after something which really means for something for us, है ना, right. So that is essentially what philosophy does for us. And as such, if you have to find the main point, basically philosophy helps a person look beyond his or her own myth. Sorry for the his here because the passage is patriarchal, so I had to write his here, but technically it should be his or her. ठीक है, right. So philosophy helps a person look beyond his or her own myth, है ना. तो ये चीज़ है, ठीक है. ये चलो आगे समझते हैं पैसेज को. Now it says, assuredly, each culture offers to philosophy the language that the latter needs to formulate its insights. But it is no less certain that each philosophy tries to question the very foundations on each on which each culture is based. है ना, बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग सा लाइन है ये. तो ये जो फिलोसफी है ये किस लैंग्वेज में ये अपने क्वेश्चंस को फ्रेम करता है? फिलोसफी क्वेश्चंस, है ना, the insights in the very language the culture provides. For example, कोई इंडिया में है, चाहे वो लैंग्वेज हिंदी हो या बंगाली हो या कोई और लैंग्वेज हो, ठीक है, तो पहले इंसान उसी चीज़ों में ऐसी चीज़ें सीखता है ना, उसी कल्चर की चीज़ें सीखता है. फिर वो इंसान थ्रू फिलोसफी उसी चीज़ों को वो क्वेश्चन भी करना शुरू कर देता है, ठीक है ना, राइट. इट्स ऑलमोस्ट लाइक समटाइम्स पेरेंट्स टेल अस, अरे मैंने ही तुम्हें सब कुछ सिखाया और आज तुम हमसे ही सवाल कर रहे हो. Isn't it, है ना. So it's just like that. The culture is the father and the mother, the parents, है ना, right. And philosophy is the child. The philosophy learns the language from the parents and starts questioning the very parents themselves, right. So but it is no less certain that each philosophy tries to question the very foundation on which each culture is based. It is philosophy that investigates the ultimate content of the more or less explicit cosmovision of each culture, है ना. तो हर एक कल्चर का एक कॉस्मोविजन है, उन्होंने डिसाइड कर रखा है, देखो लाइफ इस तरह से होनी चाहिए, लाइफ इस तरह से होनी चाहिए, एंड सो फोर्थ, राइट. यू गो टू श्रीलंका, यू फाइंड अ कल्चर दे, इंडिया में अलग कल्चर है, वियतनाम में अलग कल्चर हो गया है, चाइना में जो कल्चर थी उसको डिस्ट्रॉय करके एक नया कल्चर इम्पोज कर दिया गया है ना, राइट. तो ये भी चीज़ है ना. तो हर फिलोसफी हर एक चीज़ को वो करता है, बट देन इट इज़ हर कल्चर करता है, बट फिलोसफी हेल्प्स अस क्वेश्चन दोज वेरी थिंग्स, यू नो, दैट वी स्टार्ट डेवलपिंग, है ना. देयरफॉर यू कैन सी फिलोसफी इज ऑल्सो वेरी डायनेमिक, है ना. So we have already indicated that a specific difference of philosophy with respect to other disciplines consists in looking back rather than ahead. Looking back rather than ahead मतलब क्या है कि अभी जो हमारी जो beliefs हैं वो beliefs आई कहाँ से? It must have come from somewhere in the past, है ना. कभी वो past से वो belief अभी आई होगी, है ना, right. So most of the science, most of the knowledge, they tend to question things about the future, about the present. But philosophy questions about the past. For example, who you are right now, what is your level of thinking, what is your sense of thinking, what is your way of thinking. The past would have influenced you to think in a particular way, ठीक है ना. And philosophy helps you understand that past, है ना, and then question it, find a solution to that past and come out of it, है ना. That is what philosophy does. In looking back rather than ahead, in questioning what holds a culture together, instead of hurrying up to scale a cultural edifice in construction. Cultural edifice in construction, edifice means principles, है ना. अभी क्या है, कुछ लोग हमें डॉक्ट्रिनेट करने की कोशिश करें, देखो तुम्हें ऐसे बिलीव करना चाहिए, ऐसे बिलीव करना चाहिए. नहीं, you have to question the past, है ना. And you have to stop hurrying up to build, you know, some kind of principles around you, your beliefs around you, है ना. उस बिलीफ को तुमको डेवलप करने के पहले तुम्हें उस चीज़ को क्वेश्चन करना ज़रूरी है, ठीक है ना. सो इन दैट सेंस फिलोसफी इज ऑथेंटिक स्केप्सिस, दैट इज इट इज स्केप्टिकल, इट टेंड्स टू क्वेश्चन, इट इज रेवोल्यूशनरी, इट इज प्रोटेस्टिंग एंड इट इज ट्रांसफॉर्मिंग, है ना, राइट. तो वो ट्रांसफॉर्म करता है, बिकॉज व्हेन यू क्वेश्चन योर ओन एग्जिस्टेंस राइट नाउ, यू टेंड टू ट्रांसफॉर्म योरसेल्फ, क्योंकि तुम अपने आप को मेंटली ट्रांसफॉर्म कर रहे हो, ठीक है. So this entire thing, as you can see, basically this paragraph is talking about this only. Philosophy analyzes a culture by looking back rather than ahead in the language that the culture provides. And by questioning only, then you are being revolutionary, protesting and transforming. Okay. Nomad, are you still there? Okay. In other words, each philosophy emerges from the womb of culture, and simultaneously by questioning what holds that culture together can transform it, है ना. तो अभी हमारी जो भी बिलीफ्स हैं, देखो सोसाइटी ऐसी होनी चाहिए, ये रिलीजन, हमारे ये कस्टम्स, हम ये हैं, हम वो हैं. फिलॉसफी इन सभी चीज़ों को है ना ब्रेक डाउन करने की कोशिश करता है. इट हेल्प्स अस क्वेश्चन ऑल ऑफ दीज थिंग्स. इन फैक्ट एवरी डीप cultural change has emerged from philosophical activity. अगर फिलोसफी नहीं होगा बॉस तो कल्चरल चेंज नहीं होगा. सातुन, गुड इवनिंग माय डियर, है ना, राइट. तो ये चीज़ है, ठीक है. So it has repeatedly been said that philosophers, although with chronological time lags में थोड़ा सा लेट ज़रूर हो सकते हैं, are those who influence most the destinies of history. Destinies of history मतलब कल हिस्ट्री क्या होगा, वो आज की डेट में वो फिलोसोफर है जो कल की हिस्ट्री को बदलता है. कल मतलब कल जो हिस्ट्री बढ़ने वाला है. So this radical character of philosophy, radical character because it's extreme, it's transformative. अगर तुम फिलोसफी सीखोगे, तुम देखोगे तुम्हारा खुद का कैरेक्टर ट्रांसफॉर्म हो जाता है. So this radical character of philosophy means that it takes its nourishment from a subsoil where all also other cultures take their roots. Basically क्या है कि we are in part of this world, है ना. हमारा एक इंडियन कल्चर है, यहाँ अदर कल्चर्स भी है, अमेरिकन है, चाइनीज़ हैं, श्रीलंकन है ना, यूरोपियन है, ब्रिटिश कल्चर है ना. तो बेसिकली व्हेन यू टॉक अबाउट यूरोपियन, द ब्रिटिश, स्पेनिश, बहुत सारे और कितने सारे कल्चर्स हैं, अफ्रीकन है, ठीक है ना, राइट. सो द पॉइंट हियर इज द रैडिकल कैरेक्टर ऑफ फिलोसफी व्हिच मींस इट टेक्स इट्स नरिशमेंट फ्रॉम अ सब सॉइल वेयर आल्सो अदर कल्चर्स टेक देयर रूट्स, है ना. And then it says, by that I mean that the simultaneous the stimulus of philosophical thinking comes from its underground contact with other roots. है ना, मतलब अब इंडिया में किसी की फिलोसफिकल थिंकिंग है, वो अमेरिका से इन्फ्लुएंस्ड है, चाइना से इन्फ्लुएंस्ड है, श्रीलंका, यूरोप, है ना, सब जगह से लोगों से ये इन्फ्लुएंस्ड है. हेलो अनुराग, है ना, राइट. तो ये भी है. तो मतलब क्या, हमारा कल्चर बाकी सब, सो ये वर्ल्ड जो है इट एक्ट्स लाइक अ सॉइल. यहाँ बहुत सारे कल्चर्स जो है ये ग्रो कर रहे हैं. ये स्पेनिश कल्चर एज वेल, है ना, तो ये भी है. ठीक है, राइट. So will be so it says, comes from the underground contact with other roots. Or if we are to radically change metaphor क्या, ये जो ऑथर यहाँ पर कह रहा था, रूट्स वगैरह, सॉइल वगैरह, ऑथर ने यहाँ मेटाफर एक्सप्लेन करने, मतलब मेटाफर यूज किया था एक्सप्लेन करने के लिए हाउ डिफरेंट कल्चर्स इन्फ्लुएंस अदर कल्चर्स. सो इफ यू वर टू radically change metaphor, will be transcultural, what carries far away its seeds and lets them fall into the philosopher's cogitation is thinking, है ना, perception, without forgetting the irony and humor hidden in that cogitation. A philosophy without humor loses the humus means something which acts like a nutrition, है ना, nurtures, which keeps its it vigorous and stops it from wilting into fanatism. It does not become extreme. So basically ये क्या कह रहा है, क्या कि दूसरे कल्चर्स जो है वो, मतलब एक कल्चर जो है दूसरे कल्चर को भी इन्फ्लुएंस करता है, वो कल्चर जो है बाकी कल्चर से भी इन्फ्लुएंस होता है. सो दैट इज हाउ द फिलोसोफर्स इन अ पर्टिकुलर कल्चर दे टेंड टू बी इन्फ्लुएंस्ड. फॉर एग्जांपल, लेट्स से इफ आई एम अ फिलोसोफर सिटिंग इन इंडिया, आई माइट बी influenced by American beliefs, I might be influenced by Spanish, African, Chinese, other beliefs, है ना. For example, I keep on philosophizing the words of Sun Tzu, है ना, the art of war, because I find his philosophy to be pretty awesome, है ना. And many other philosophers, for example, Ayn Rand is from the US, she's like Russian who settled down in the US. I'm pretty much influenced by her. तो उसके भी philosophies, I tend to kind of tell the people, right. तो ये भी होता है, ठीक है ना. सो बेसिकली व्हाट इट इज ट्राइंग टू से इज लेट्स देम फॉल इनटू द फिलोसोफर्स कॉजिटेशन विदाउट फॉरगेटिंग द आयरनी, बट देन आई नीड टू कीप माई ह्यूमर अलाइव. क्योंकि अगर मैं ज़्यादा सोचने लगूंगा तो अपने कल्चर को ज़्यादा क्रिटिसाइज करने लगूंगा, आई विल बिकम अ फैनेटिक, बट आई नीड टू कीप माई माइंड काम एज वेल, है ना. तो ये चीज़ है, ठीक है. सो बेसिकली डिफरेंट कल्चर्स अफेक्ट अदर कल्चर्स, है ना. दैट्स व्हाट एसेंशियली दिस पैराग्राफ इज ट्राइंग टू से. एंड दैट इज व्हाई इन 1893 व्हेन देयर वाज दिस पार्लियामेंट ऑफ रिलीजन इन शिकागो, व्हेन स्वामी विवेकानंद वेंट देयर एंड व्हेन ही गेव हिज लेक्चर, ही टॉक्ड अबाउट द यूनिफिकेशन ऑफ द ईस्ट एंड द वेस्टर्न कल्चर्स, है ना. एंड देन ही टॉक्ड अबाउट द ग्लोरिफिकेशन ऑफ द वेदर्स आउट देयर, है ना, right. So when he talked about the unification of the east and the west, basically he was talking about how different cultures influence others, right. He talked about that in 1893, but the modern philosophers took a long time to pick that up, है ना. उस समय कोई जो है यूनिफाइड फिलोसफी ऑफ द वर्ल्ड के बारे में कोई नहीं बात करता था. इट वाज स्वामी विवेकानंद हु टॉक्ड अबाउट इट, एंड दैट इज वन ऑफ द रीजंस व्हाई ही बिकेम वेरी फेमस, राइट. तो ये भी है ना. So it talks about, and lets them fall into the philosopher's cogitation, है ना. So a philosophy without humor, so we've already talked about this. So by trying to be aware of its myth, philosophy opens itself up to interculturality in order to accomplish its task of transmythicization. So myth क्या है, मेरे कल्चर्स के जो बिलीव्स हैं, एक बार अगर मैं उसकी तरफ अवेयर हो गया, ठीक है, देन व्हाट डू आई डू, मैं दूसरे कल्चर के बारे में सीखता हूँ, है ना. फिर उस कल्चर से मैं कुछ इधर मैं अपने कल्चर में लाता हूँ, मैं अपने कल्चर से उनको कुछ सिखाता हूँ. सो देयर इज ट्रांसमिथिसाइजेशन, है ना, दस ट्रांसफॉर्मिंग द ओरिजिनल कल्चर्स विजन ऑफ रियलिटी. उस तरह से क्या होता है, ओरिजिनल कल्चर का जो विजन है वो चेंज होता है. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, डू यू नो वाई स्टारबक्स एंड कोक एंड ऑल फेल इन द कंट्री. कोक जो है, यानी कोको कोला, ठीक है, कोको कोला फेल इन द कंट्री, वन ऑफ द रीजंस बीइंग कि इंडियन ब्रांड्स भी उस समय काफ़ी स्ट्रॉन्ग थे. लेकिन स्टारबक्स फेल इन द कंट्री बिकॉज Starbucks did not understand the philosophy and the culture of this country. For example, here people don't like to go to a restaurant and be served, to be their own. They don't believe in self-serving. खुद को सर्व करना पसंद नहीं करते हैं इंडियंस, है ना. और स्टारबक्स का कल्चर क्या है कि यू हैव टू गो दे पे एंड देन यू हैव टू काइंड ऑफ टेक योर ओन कॉफ़ी एंड यू नो सेल्फ सर्व योर सेल्फ एंड देन गो एंड टेक द सीट. चीनी वगैरह सब कुछ तुम खुद ही ले रहे हो वहाँ पे, तुम्हें कोई वहाँ सर्व करने वाला नहीं है. काउंटर के बाहर जो है तुम्हें जल्दी कोई बंदा मिलता नहीं है एक्सेप्ट फॉर द गाय हु कम्स एंड पिक्स अप द कप्स एंड ऑल. जो कस्टमर्स लेजी होते हैं उसको उठा के खुद जो है डस्टबिन में नहीं फेंकते हैं. स्टारबक्स फेल्ड इन द कंट्री, बट लुक एट हाउ आवर कल्चरल ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन हैज़ हैपेंड आफ्टर 1991 लिबरलाइजेशन, privatization and globalization. American culture has influenced us. Now we do the self-serving, so we are our own waiters in Starbucks. और हम क्या कर रहे हैं, सेल्फी लेकर उसको फेसबुक पे भी डाल रहे हैं. That's how proud we feel, है ना? Which is not a bad thing, it's a good thing because it's a cultural change that has happened now. ठीक है ना? तो this is exactly how things change, है ना? Right? So basically इसका एक मेन पॉइंट क्या हो जाएगा, philosophy emerges from a culture and goes to transform the culture and its myth itself by opening itself to interculturality and also helps shape the culture's vision of reality. ठीक है ना? Now this paragraph says this transformation takes place although at velocities that can be very different within both cultures in question. The authentic meeting between cultures does not necessarily take place midway but certainly outside the respective field of I. So basically what it means is, अगर मान लो ये इंडियन कल्चर है, लेट्स से, है ना, दिस इज अमेरिकन कल्चर है, ठीक है ना, तो ये अगर मान लो इंडियन कल्चर चेंज हो रहा है तो ये नहीं है कि ये चेंज कल्चर के अंदर हो रहा है. सो दिस लोकस ऑफ चेंज इज नॉट इन बिटवीन. अमेरिकन कल्चर को अगर इंडियन कल्चर इन्फ्लुएंस हो रहा है तो ज़रूरी नहीं है कि वो अमेरिकन कल्चर के अंदर ही हो रहा है. फॉर एग्जांपल इंडियन कल्चर इज ऑल्सो इन्फ्लुएंसिंग अमेरिकन कल्चर. जस्ट लुक एट जूलिया रॉबर्ट्स, शी इज़ फॉलोइंग हिंदुइज्म नाउअडेज, राइट. तो ये भी चीज़, मेनी अदर पीपल डू दैट, है ना, हिंदुइज्म, बुद्धिज्म, इट्स इन्फ्लुएंसिंग देम, राइट. सो बट देन अगर अमेरिकन कल्चर इंडियन कल्चर के ऊपर आके ये चीज़ें कल्चर के अंदर इम्पोज करने की कोशिश करेगी ना, इंडियंस विल सी इट एज समबडी हु इज फोर्सिंग थिंग्स ऑन अस, है ना. सो देयर विल बी स्कर्मिशेस. Otherwise, they would be meeting but phagocytosis or rejection. I insist on this point because the skirmishes, generally economic and political, even military of certain cultures in foreign fields, are not examples of interculturality but domination. तो Indians को क्या लगेगा कि Americans dominate कर रहे हैं, इसीलिए कोका-कोला रिजेक्ट हुआ, स्टारबक्स रिजेक्ट हुआ, बहुत सारी चीज़ें हो गया. उस समय था कि Americans go back, कोका-कोला के खिलाफ नारे लगते थे, है ना, राइट. तो ये चीज़ थी. इसी तरह अगर इंडियंस अगर अमेरिका को इन्फ्लुएंस करेंगे, उसके ऊपर अंदर जो जाके उसको डोमिनेट करने के लिए, तो अमेरिका में भी रिजेक्शन होगा. लुक एट ओशो फेस्ड अ लॉट ऑफ बैकलैशेस इन अमेरिका. उसको बोला कि अरे इसको भगाओ यहाँ से, दे वर अटैक्स ऑन हिज आश्रम एंड ऑल, राइट. तो ये भी चीज़ें हुई, है ना. सो द मीटिंग पॉइंट इज समवेयर एल्स, समवेयर इन द मिडल, है ना, वे इट्स like an agreement, है ना. So Indians are changing a little further, accepting Americans while keeping the Indian values intact. Americans are changing further and then you know they are adopting from other cultures and all as well, है ना. तो ये भी चीज़ होती है, ठीक है. अब ऐसा होगा तभी जो जाके जो उसको डोमिनेशन हम नहीं कहेंगे. एंड दैट्स एग्जैक्टली हाउ इंडिया इज चेंजिंग राइट नाउ. वी टू अ सर्टेन एक्सटेंट हमारे इंडियन कल्चर्स को भी हम होल्ड कर रहे हैं और हम धीरे धीरे कुछ अच्छे अमेरिकन वैल्यूज़ को भी हम जो है अडॉप्ट कर रहे हैं, है ना. तो ये चीज़ है. हमारा क्लोथ्स चेंज हो रहा है पर हमारी माइंडसेट जो है अभी भी बहुत सारे फैमिली वैल्यूज़ को स्टिल यू नो वर्शिप करती है. सो द ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन ऑफ टू कल्चर्स टेक्स प्लेस आउटसाइड रिस्पेक्टिव फील्ड्स ऑफ ईच कल्चर और एल्स देयर वुड बी रिजेक्शन एज समटाइम्स कल्चर स्कर्मिशेस इन फॉरेन फील्ड्स लीड टू डोमिनेशन. ठीक है, तो ये भी है. So finally it says, you know, each philosophy is a human effort to move out of its own myth, an attempt to move out of the horizon of one's own world as represented in miniatures of the late Renaissance, which show man piercing the heavens and glimpsing into an infinite universe which was then, starting to dawn before his very eyes, है ना. तो हर एक फिलॉसफी का ह्यूमन एफर्ट है तो अपने मिथ, अपने बिलीफ से बाहर आने का, है ना, एंड अटेम्प्ट टू मूव आउट ऑफ द होराइजन ऑफ वंस ओन वर्ल्ड, अपनी दुनिया से बाहर आने का. इनफैक्ट बहुत पहले ही पीपल स्टार्टेड टू गेट इंटरेस्टेड इन द सोलर सिस्टम, है ना. तो स्टार्स और हेवंस और सन और इनके पोजिशंस एंड ऑल ऑफ दीज थिंग्स वी स्टार्टेड टू क्वेश्चन ऑल ऑफ दीज थिंग्स, है ना. So every philosophy by approaching the mythos with logos, mythos यानी beliefs with logos means logic, exercises a demythologizing function. मतलब अभी हम लोग जो बिलीव करते हैं उसको हम demythologize करते हैं, मतलब हम अपने बिलीव्स को अभी हटाते हैं और फिर उसको माइथोलॉजाइज करते हैं, हम लोग नई बिलीव्स को लाते हैं. फॉर एग्जाम्पल पहले लोग ये बिलीव करते थे कि अर्थ वॉज द सेंटर ऑफ द अर्थ और सन जो है वो अर्थ के अराउंड रोटेट करता था. बट व्हेन गैलीलियो केम इनटू द पिक्चर ही चेंज्ड द डेफिनेशन. ही सेड नो, सन इज द सेंटर ऑफ द अर्थ एंड अर्थ रोटेट्स अराउंड दिस. दिस क्रिएटेड अ लॉट ऑफ रुकुस इन द वर्ल्ड, है ना, बिकॉज ऑफ विच परहैप्स ही वाज पॉइजन्ड, राइट. तो ये भी चीज़ है, ठीक है. But then he remythologized, he changed what we ended up believing. One cannot separate the logos from the myth and the myth from the logos. तो हमारे belief और logic और belief हम कभी इसको जो है separate नहीं कर सकते. We have to kind of find a balance among them. So basically that's what the main point becomes. Each philosophy is a human effort to move out of its own myth using logic and hence exercise demythologizing function and end up remythologizing it. People, I'm hurrying a little bit क्योंकि time is getting up, है ना, but later on you can kind of revisit the video and understand this thing once again, है ना, it will help you understand a lot. So let us summarize a very complex situation. One receives this incitement to philosophize as much from the avatars of one's own culture as from the stimuli that comes from foreign cultures. So foreign cultures से जो हमें stimulation मिलती है हम उससे भी सीखते हैं और हम अपने culture से भी चीज़ें सीखते हैं, ठीक है ना, right. So that becomes the main point. One is motivated to philosophize by avatars of one's own culture and the influence from foreign cultures, ठीक है. So the main points collected so far are: philosophy helps a person look beyond his or her own myth. Philosophy analyzes a culture by looking back rather than ahead in the language that the culture provides, है ना. Philosophy emerges from a culture and goes on to transform the culture and its myth itself by opening itself up to interculturality and also helps shape the culture's vision of reality. The transformation of two cultures takes place outside respective fields of each culture, or else there would be rejection, as sometimes a culture skirmishes in foreign fields leads to domination. And each philosophy is a human effort to move out of its own myth using logic and hence exercises demythologizing function and ends up remythologizing it. One is motivated to philosophize by avatars of one's own culture and the influence from foreign culture. And this is something what we can have as a summary as well. Philosophy helps a person look beyond his or her own myth by analyzing a culture through looking back rather than ahead in a language of the culture itself, and in the process goes on to transform the culture and its myth by opening itself to interculturality and also helps shape the culture's vision of reality. The transformation occurs outside the realms of the two cultures, as sometimes the transformation can be rejected because one culture tends to dominate over the other. One is motivated to philosophize by avatars of one's own culture and the influence from foreign cultures, and this leads to moving out of out होना चाहिए था, own लिखा गया यहाँ पे, moving out, है ना, of one's own myth by questioning it through logic and ends up mythologizing it through a demythologizing function, ठीक है. So that would be the summary. People, Unacademy has once again brought back the scholarship tests. So please, register for these tests and you can get a huge scholarship, है ना. तो ये है. And there's a MBA 2021 mock marathon test as well. You can enroll for this one as well, right? Some new batches are being launched, for NMAT, for CAT and OMET, revision guide for 3.0 CAT 2021. My batches are also starting for CAT 2022 from the 18th and 22nd people, है ना. So join my group and you will get all the necessary updates, ठीक है. So follow me on Unacademy, है ना. Join my Telegram group. Use my code to get at least 10% discount, right? Do you have any questions? Do you have any questions from your side? So people who have come in intermittently in between, who've not seen the session properly, है ना, so please watch the session and look at them in detail. Chandan, after a long time hearing from you, my dear, on YouTube, how are you, my dear? है ना, doing good? Okay, है ना, तो ये चीज़ है, ठीक है. चलो, should we call it a day? Do we have any questions from your side? Tomorrow, people, at this time we will do para jumbles. ठीक है ना, tomorrow we will do para jumbles as well, right? We are going to do that thing extensively. उसके बाद para jumbles, para completion, para summary. At this time I have planned all of these courses, time management and everything, ये सारे courses जो है मेरे planned है. सर हाउ टू कॉम्प्रीहेंड फास्ट टू गेट मेन पॉइंट. अनुराग, दैट विल कम थ्रू प्रैक्टिस माय डियर. ठीक है ना. अब ये पैसेज है, कभी कभी मुझे 2 घंटे लग जाते हैं इसको समझाने में. अनफॉर्चुनेटली यूट्यूब का सेशन था, मुझे 1 घंटे में समझाना पड़ा, है ना. सो द मोर यू रीड, द मोर यू कॉम्प्रीहेंड, द मोर सच थिंग्स यू रीड, द फास्टर यू कॉम्प्रीहेंड, है ना. तो बस ये प्रैक्टिस की बात है दोस्त, और कुछ नहीं है. थैंक यू सिद्धार्थ, थैंक यू फॉर अटेंडिंग द इंटायर सेशन. ग्लैड यू वर हियर. ठीक है अनुराग, ठीक है. दैट्स हाउ यू आर सपोज टू डू. द प्रैक्टिस इज द ओनली वे आउट. ठीक है. Okay, fantastic everybody, fantastic for coming. है ना. चंदन, अनुराग, सिद्धार्थ, इशिता, nice to see you. Satun, great to see you here. And Pooja and Nomad and who else is here? Okay, everybody else, बहुत सारे नाम है. Tarun, welcome here, है ना, and everybody else. Thank you for attending the session. है ना. See you tomorrow when we will dissect parajumbles. Okay people, thank you. I'm calling an end to today's